Welcome everyone to this free preview today, talking about the microbiome and our skin and reproductive health with Dr. Robert Svoboda and Scott Blossom, L.A.C. You all are in for a treat. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to them. If you say hello in the chat, let us know where you are at, and I'll share some more information there for you too. So look out for that.
Great. Thanks, Paula, and good to see you, Dr. Svoboda.
Good to see you, Dr. Scott.
And thank you welcome to Bridget from Arizona and Rasamai from Toronto and Jaya from Pranam, Montreal. Philip says hello. Hello to you, Philip. And Vancouver, Hawaii, Philip from Berkeley. That's where I'm at. I'm on the Chochenyu Ohlone land in Berkeley. And Whidbey Island, Sweden, Selena in Somerset, Toronto, Claudia from Mexico, looks like New Jersey, Montenegro, Kauai. Hello, Bidervi, good to see you. All right, so welcome to everybody. People are still joining, and we had a pretty large turnout for this. So I'm going to give maybe another 30 seconds just to give people a chance to land and continue to acknowledge where folks are coming from. So there's Humboldt County in California, and there's Amsterdam, Berlin, Massachusetts, Laguna Beach, California, the Ozarks, Los Angeles, Madrid, Spain, Fremont, California, and New York, San Francisco. So yeah, welcome to everybody. So again, it's great to be here with Dr. Svoboda, and thank you for Paula for helping us to create this event and get it going. Hi, Veronica from Pagosa Springs. And so we want to welcome you here and also let you know that this is a little bit about what we're going to go into in our course. And so this course is Ayurveda and the Microbiome, specifically about skin and reproductive health. And this is our fourth and final installment of this series of Ayurveda and the Microbiome that Dr. Svoboda and I have enjoyed doing through the year. And I'm got to say, this is no different than the other courses. I'm always blown away by what we discover as we get into researching the microbiome and seeing what science is emerging, as well as thinking about the way that Ayurveda and its principles relate to and are complementary to the truths and the practices and the things that we can really utilize from the modern research. The course is a standalone course. So if you haven't been with us before, don't worry. You don't need to have prior knowledge. You can just drop in, because everything will be explained carefully and within the context of these subjects. But if you did want to catch up and you haven't seen the other three, they are living on the Teachable page, where you will find the course registration and the introduction and welcoming on Dr. Svoboda's Teachable page. And I'll also be hosting it on my Teachable page. And Paula will give that information, at the end. And if you want to drop it into the chat right now, Paula, feel free to. The dates are going to be July 29th to August 5th. And we're really, really happy to have Dr. Claudia Welch, who's a dear friend of both of ours and an expert in hormonal health, specifically for women's health, joining us to elaborate this integration of Ayurveda and the microbiome for reproductive health. And so that's going to be great. And we're both looking forward to that. So Dr. Svoboda, would you like to sort of help us move into the frame of how Ayurveda and the microbiome relates specifically to skin and reproductive health?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Scott. I would like to do that. And before I begin, I would like to give a special shout out. I just saw the name of Mariana, who I've known since she was, well, as we say over here, knee high to a grasshopper. And now she has a baby of her own. So I would just like to say that's so exciting. It's just very exciting. Of course, it makes me realize that I'm no longer quite so young myself, but it's really it. I mean, it's beautiful to see someone grow up and then and start a family herself, and it's great to have you here, Mariana, as well as everybody else. Maybe who
Hi,
I haven't
Mariana.
known since you were that young, but howdy, glad to have you here. Skin in Ayurveda is regarded, on the one hand, kind of prosaically as being an upadhatu, a secondary tissue to the muscle, to the flesh. And the job of the flesh is lepana. The job of the flesh is to cover all the bones and all the nerves and all the other the structures in the body, to make sure that the body feels very well integrated and very secure in itself. Because really, the skin is the thing that effectively creates a barrier. It's not an absolute barrier. It's a permeable barrier, but it's the structure that we have that creates an outside and an inside for us. And it's a unique thing because, of course, being that wall or that membrane, or however you want to think of it, it has, on the outside, it's connecting to the macrocosm. On the inside, it's connecting to the microcosm. So it's in between the two. It's part of both, but it is resident in the microcosm. It's resident in the individual. And so anything that we do to keep ourselves healthy is going to affect the health of the skin, because that's basically what determines who we are. It's what determines where we stop and the rest of the world begins. And whenever I think about health in general, in health and Ayurveda, in the context of Ayurveda in particular, I always remember the words of Vimalananda, who was fond of talking about health and how to maintain it. And he had a very simple saying, a simple maxim, and that was, if you want to be healthy, you always need to keep your breath moving, your body moving, and your bowels moving. And why movement? Because, of course, movement is what prana is all about. Prana is the life force. Without prana, we're no longer alive. And the life force is never stagnant or static. Where it becomes stagnant or static, that's where disease begins. The life force has to be always circulating. It always has to be moving. It has to move to be healthy and to have good longevity. It has to move slowly. It has to move deeply. It has to move regularly. And therefore, in the thing that we do most and most often that influences the action and the condition of the life force in the organism is to breathe. We're doing that several times every minute. And just paying attention to how you breathe is going to directly influence your health by providing you a good quality of prana. It's going to directly influence your health by making the microbiome of your lung remain healthy, providing good prana to the microorganisms there. And of course, that microbiome is connected to the gut microbiome. All the microbiomes are connected together. Some are directly connected, some are indirectly connected. They're all connected. And the breath is one thing that circulates throughout the entire body. The breath, the prana, and the attention. So we always want to keep the breath moving. We want to keep the body moving. we have to exercise a little bit every day, even if it's walking, because especially nowadays, employing screens, being immobilized in front of them, keeping our bodies in a particular limited planes of movement, it becomes very easy for narrowing, for constriction of various channels of circulation to occur. It makes it more difficult for prana to do its job. And of course, when that happens, then the entire organism is unable to feel the vitality that you need to feel when you are healthy. And you have to keep your bowels moving. And that means that everything that goes into your mouth needs to come out through the other end after being properly digested, after having all of the nutrients taken out, but having the prana removed also in the large intestine. And of course, that's where the largest number of bacteria are located. So there's an intimate connection between the contents of the large intestine and the prana that is keeping us alive, keeping us healthy, keeping us enthusiastic about living. So I never get tired of reminding everyone that the skin is not just on the outside of the body as we see it. The inside of the digestive tract is also one variety of skin, because everything that's inside the digestive tract is also not part of you. Just like everything outside our skin is separate from us, everything inside the digestive tract is also separate from us. It's intimately connected. It's creating a symbiotic organism between the microbiome and the human cells, but it's still not part of the interior of the organism. So that's also a part of the skin. And Vimalananda emphasized strongly that the condition of the membrane that lines the digestive tract and the condition of the skin, these are intimately connected. If one is disturbed, another is going to be disturbed also. And if for no other reason, this is why it is so important not to be using harsh cleansers on the skin. Some people, including me, don't even use soap on the skin except when, let's say, my hands or feet are extremely dirty. Otherwise, I don't use soap because the natural oils of the skin do the job along with a little bit of water and some manipulation with the hands. That's sufficient to get the dirt off of the outside skin that needs to be removed without stripping the oils away, without stripping off the microbiome, and therefore potentially adversely affecting the condition of the internal microbiome, because that internal skin of the gut and that external skin of the body, they are both skin and they're communicating with one another. And if one is not doing well, the other is going to be put under stress. And if one improves, the other is going to be able to relax a little and then improve itself. This is why Ayurveda enthusiastically employs oil, both to nourish and to cleanse the skin. And to get rid of the oil, ordinarily, of course, Ayurveda does not use soap because soap didn't exist thousands of years ago. What did exist was clay. You can take some clay and add water and apply the clay, let it soak up the oil and then wash it off again. Sandalwood paste. The paste of many different substances has been used to clean the skin, but first that skin is made softer and more supple by the application of oil, and the oil also encourages whatever kind of whatever sort of dirt is on the skin to come up from the pores and the crypts and so on, to come up to where it can be accessed by those mechanical and herbal methods that are going to gently assist everything that needs to be taken away to be taken away. In addition to which, the oil also has a calming effect on the skin because each one of those little pores has a little nerve ending next to it. The oil causes those nerve endings to calm down. That calms down the vata, the prana, circulates better. Everything is happy, and therefore you as an individual are happy. Om, Om, Dr. Scott.
Thank you. That's that, of course, is mirrored in traditional Chinese medicine, that the health and integrity of the large intestine is directly influential on the skin. And I think that what's really notable about Ayurveda is the way that basti is employed to oil the colon directly, in the same way that preparations that may be ghee or coconut or sesame oil preparations can be used on the skin. And generally speaking, when you look at the microbiome, and we're going to go much more deeply into this because there's so many different ways to work with the skin. And I can say, as a clinician for the last 25 years, skin problems can be some of the most difficult things to treat, and they also can be some of the most troublesome for people when they persist. And so I think most of us are interested in the skin, but one of the facts that we're finding out as we do this research is that the different, something like coconut oil or sesame oil, for example, will inhibit different kinds of microbes. So for example, both sesame oil and coconut oil are antifungal. And so when you think about skin issues, having skin fungus on the skin can create a lot of topical difficulty. Often the fungus is not limited to the surface. In fact, it comes from originally taking root in the colon and then spreading through the system like a mycelium does, and then coming out through the skin. But nonetheless, something like a sesame oil, there is research to show, and coconut oil, that it actually inhibits fungus. In the case of coconut oil, it also has fairly potent antimicrobial effects, which is one of the reasons why coconut oil is not necessarily a great call if you're going to use it for internally in the vaginal region, because it can affect the microbiome there negatively. There are some products, some modern products that have been, developed and modified that come from coconut that can be used internally, and we'll go into some of those options too for vegans, because Ayurveda, favors oils like ghee for nourishing the reproductive microbiome. And so, not to leave men out of this, or the men also have both a genital skin microbiome that's specific, as well as a urethral microbiome, so an internal microbiome as well. And it's interesting to note that there is correlation in scientific studies for the health of the prostate in men that is linked to not only the quality and the health of the local microbiome in the skin and the urethra of the genitals, but also linked to the oral and the gut microbiome as well. And so this is something with a population that is aging and living longer in general. For men, especially in westernized societies, prostate trouble can be seen as kind of a natural outcome of aging, and it's not. There's many cultures that there's epidemiological information to show that you don't have to age with having your prostate enlarge or become irritated, inflamed, or even cancerous necessarily. And by learning things about how to keep the microbiome healthy in those areas, as well as your gut and your oral microbiome, which we've covered in the previous courses, but we'll go back into here specifically in this context, it's really, really It's very important for quality of life, for sexual health, etc. And, to kind of come full circle and, return to the vaginal microbiome, one of the things that is absolutely true is that there's a great variation in the microbiome that is a so-called healthy vaginal microbiome. When they've done studies, there's not a group of microbes that define a healthy vaginal microbiome, but there are some easy ways to promote a healthy microbiome without having to go into a kind of tremendously detailed taxonomy and get really into supplementing specific microbes, although that could be appropriate, by simply being aware that what the vaginal microbiome functions to do is to keep the vaginal microbiome at a certain pH, and that tends to be a kind of acidic pH, and it makes it inhospitable to pathogenic microbes that can create difficulties with menstrual health, with pregnancy, fertility, and also with postmenopausal genital health for women. And so this is what we'll be diving into, and there's a lot more to say on it, and that's why we're going to take several hours to dive into it and give this kind of balanced perspective. Anything you'd like to add in on that, Dr. Svoboda, or to elaborate on more?
Dr. Svoboda, you're muted.
Sorry. Trying to keep everything moving in a good direction. I think one thing that I had not known about until very recently was something called the estrobolome. The estrobolome being something that is that part of the microbiome that regulates estrogen metabolism. And that diet, of course, is therefore very important in not only diet, but making sure that the transit time of the gut, keeping your bowels moving, literally, is appropriate, because if things stay in the gut too long, then that affects the way that estrogen is either activated or inactivated, usually nowadays inactivated, especially because of all the different xenoestrogens that we are exposed to. And how interesting it is that the foods that promote good estrogen metabolism are the very foods that promote good balance in the organism. That's what sattva means. So healthy, clean, healthy foods, fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and all of these things that are multiple different varieties and spices, all sorts of a wide variety of different foods that are clean and that are fresh. All of these things promote sattva, and at the same time, that sattva, literally, it means accuracy, and by extension, it means balance and harmony. It promotes balance and harmony not only of the microbiome, but of the entire process that keeps the hormones in both genders, in both men and women, but especially in women, since their hormones are they shift in a much more a much more critical and very subtle and very a fashion that requires a lot of precision in that shifting. And for the body to be able to do that, it needs to have good intelligence in it. And it's very interesting for what I myself have been learning, is that the microbiome is itself providing a good deal of that intelligence to assist the body to keep all of these hormones active at those moments when they need to be active, and then inactive at those moments when they need to be inactive. And so I think it's very noteworthy about how Ayurveda has emphasized again and again the importance of a healthy diet, the importance of good digestion, and not just as we have, as I was taught in the Ayurvedic college, because that helps the tissues of the body and the skin, for example, to be properly nourished, but because it helps the other part of this symbiotic relationship. It also assists the microbiome to be healthy and to do the job that it needs to do to maintain this holobiont that is the human being. And this, of course, is why Ayurveda has encouraged for men and women, but especially for women, the use of oil, and especially the use of ghee. That if, on those occasions when it was necessary to insert some sort of medical substance into the vagina, very commonly it was whatever that herb or was, would be it would be combined with ghee, usually cooked, but sometimes in a different method, combined with ghee, and then that preparation, including the ghee, would be inserted into the vagina, both because the ghee acts as a good transport mechanism, a good vahana, to get those nutritive and therapeutic principles that are in the herbs into the body via the membrane of the vagina, but also because that the ghee has a calming and a protective and a vulnerary, a healing kind of effect. And it also has a nice effect of calming vata and encouraging prana to circulate well. So these are the sort of things that I'm very interested in, and I have been very excited to study, to learn more about them, because it's all of what we know about any of the microbiomes is very limited. I say we, I mean human beings at this stage in our existence. But what we as human beings know about the reproductive microbiome is even just a fraction of what we know about the other microbiomes. And so I think that this is one reason I'm particularly excited that we're having this course, because it's forcing me to learn more and more about the subject. Dr. Scott?
Yeah, thank you. I agree. I think that this is, we're at this time where the microbiome is really helping us to, you could say, validate, in a scientific context, validate the kinds of practices that come from traditional knowledge. And it's not limited to Ayurveda or traditional Chinese medicine, but all of the traditional knowledge about health and healing that exists, because that knowledge tends to be sort of systems-based, and usually when you look at it through the lens of the microbiome, very microbiome friendly. So the good news for all of us is we're going to be able to come away with dietary lifestyle information that is immediately applicable, but also Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine have gone very deeply into specific recommendations. So ways, for example, with foods for the skin, in traditional Chinese medicine, they recommend eating foods that are white on the inside, that they are the color white. So there's a whole spectrum of foods. You can think of almonds, you can think of pears, you can think of potatoes. But it's a sort of curious thing in the modern day to say that. But at the same time, it's a tried and tested strategy. And I've employed it in my own practice with helping people with skin disorders. And so as you all probably well know, Ayurveda is filled with very specific suggestions that may not have been scientifically investigated, but are supportive of the microbiome for exactly the reason that Dr. Svoboda just mentioned, in the sense that they are wholesome, balanced foods, and then by extension, they encourage balance in both the mind and the body. And so we look forward to diving deep and diving even deeper into this with y'all. And so Paula has put the put a reminder of the dates and the links to the course. And we look forward to you joining us July 29th. And just remember, everything's going to be recorded. So even if you're going to be on vacation or you won't be able to join us live, like all of our courses, they've been recorded. So you could potentially sign up and join us and then watch it after the fact if you're not able to live. And so, yeah, I look forward to being there with you, Dr. Svoboda, and learning from you. It's always fascinating to hear, the depth and breadth of your knowledge around these subjects in the way that you should, ingeniously integrate them. So, and I look forward to that time together.
And always a pleasure to teach with you, Dr. Scott, because I learn things too. And it's always nice when there's an ability to learn from one another, which is what we as human beings should be doing with one another. So
Yes.
On that note, I shall wish you a fond adieu and look forward to seeing you again on July 29.
Thank you. Bye,
And everybody
everybody
else too.